Oh, it says I am now live. Hopefully, we'll see. Ian's joining us. Hello, Ian.
Hey, everybody.
So Ian and Brian are in the same time zone. We've got a new member, Brian. I'll get him to introduce himself in a minute, but it's also 7:30 in the morning where he is. So you're not the only early riser, Ian. And for those of you, hopefully, we're live on Facebook. My name is Allan. Welcome to the online Gurdjieff group. And I've really been taken by this affirmation that I read in Roger Lipsy's Gurdjieff Reconsidered. This is an English translation. The original was in French. It was given to one of his students during the Nazi occupation when they were in Paris during World War II. And it's, I wish to be, I can be, I have the right to be, I have the ability to be. I swear to myself that this will never be for my personal profit, but to help others. I wish to be to help others. This is to be understood as a vow. And for Mr. Gurdjieff, a vow, a machine is incapable of making a vow. When we're operating at that level of personality, when we're operating at the level of the man-machine, we are incapable of promising anything. So this is really an essence promise. It's a promise done hopefully in a state of personal consciousness, in a state of self-remembering. Hopefully when we say this affirmation, we do it with the sensing of our body, the awareness of what we can see, hear, smell, taste, our environment, which is going to be the topic of today's meeting. And I'm just going to stop sharing this. And I know Sana in Turkey said that she's in a permaculture course, so she won't be able to make it. I'm not sure if Angelica will. But we have a new member, Brian, Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yes, sir.
Can you, I mean, you've been interested in the Gurdjieff teachings not a long time, which is great for us, 6 to 8 months, but you had a profound experience and you went looking for an answer and you found that answer in the Gurdjieff teachings more or less. Can you just give us a little background to yourself?
Sure. So I'm Brian from Scottsdale. I was I was healing from an autoimmune disease, and in that process I was getting my health back, and I started meditation. And I guess you could say during one of the meditations, I had a deep experience where I kind of, I describe it as kind of like, at the time, like seeing beyond myself. And I just started researching everything. And I thought at the time that it was the Kundalini, process that people talk about. But the more I researched, I found Gurdjieff and the idea of self-remembering. And that seemed like a much more accurate description of what I felt more than the Kundalini awakening, more of the Gurdjieffian awakening, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I mean, when I talked to you before, you described it as sort of like a light turning on.
That was pretty much that was what it was. I mean, it was one of those things where, like, if the light turns on and then you see something that you realize, after that, your life, there's your life before that moment, and then there's your life after that moment.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way I would describe it for myself back when I was 23 years old. And I was taught by Dr. Christopher Holmes in a psychology course how to self-remember. And it was like a light turning on, and it was like my life before and my life after. So there's a lot of similarities. Anything else you want to add? Just a way of description of yourself briefly.
Yeah, I mean, I have I'm still learning a ton, and I still find some of the concepts pretty difficult, but I feel like the more I, just the more, even just watching these videos online, and the more I read, like it feels like it does become easier to understand the more I look into it and read it. And then other than that, I mean, I have a restoration business that I do, that I've been in business with. And I have a new business, which was, the idea was launched kind of around the same time where I had that, self-remembering moment, which is it's like a meditation center, and we use indoor rowing machines as a form of therapy with music.
Okay. We talked briefly, when I interviewed you to come on join the meeting, about a magnetic center.
Yeah.
Those of us here, obviously, we all have magnetic centers. And I've often described a magnetic center as being a lodestone in the heart, which is like a lodestone is a magnetized rock that can help you find north. And the lodestone in the heart, once it gets activated, heaven help you. You will be drawn to conscious influences. As long as you're in alignment, things will be working out. But if you try to lead a normal life, if you try to step out of alignment, things will be different. You will sort of find yourself between a rock and a hard place. And it also sounds, Brian, like your magnetic center got activated. And it's now pulling you in this direction. And the rest of us, we've got magnetic centers. We know what that feels like. So let's just begin with an inner exercise. Whoops, I hear that they're starting to vacuum upstairs. Hopefully it won't. This is a massage therapy clinic. They usually do it earlier than now, but we'll see. Hopefully it won't be too loud. So let's just become aware of our body. And as we do, let's think that, we're working along 3 lines of work. We are working for ourselves. We are working for our fellow human being. And we are working for the planet herself. We exist on all of these levels so that anything we do touches all of these levels. And then try to become aware of your body. Try to bring your awareness into your body. Perhaps become aware of the sensation of gravity on your body, that internal awareness of gravity pulling us down, aware of the various pressure points, perhaps underneath our sitting bones, underneath our thighs, underneath the bottom of our feet. And then perhaps we can become aware of balance. Notice how your head, the skull and head, is balanced on your neck, which is balanced on your shoulders and your rib cage and your breastbone and collarbone, which is balanced on your spine, which is balanced on your pelvic bones. And then become aware of temperature. Try to become aware of the temperature inside your body. Perhaps focus on your forehead. And that's where, as children, we're taught to perceive whether or not we have a fever. Try to become aware of the internal temperature, and then try to become aware of the external temperature, of the environment, of the air around you. We also have special sensors in our body that are devoted to atmospheric pressure. If we never sort of go up and down mountains a lot, we're not that familiar with it. But barometric pressure, when storms come, when it rains, the pressure lowers, and some people are able to perceive coming storms because they're very sensitive to atmospheric pressure. But we all have this capability to be aware of the atmospheric pressure around us. Perhaps you can remember a time when you were in water and the pressure of the water around you felt such a way. And now that you're here sitting, watching, you can become aware of a much milder form of pressure around your body. And then let's become aware of inside our body. Let's become aware of, for instance, the inside of our mouth. Become aware of our tongue, the inside of our throat. Try to perceive down our esophagus, down into our stomach. Aware of, we've got sensory nerve nodes all the way down our esophagus into our stomach. If something gets stuck in our throat, our esophagus. If we eat something wrong, we're able to perceive that. We've also got sensory nerve nodes throughout the inside of our body, but as Mr. Gurdjieff said, it's not a good idea to bring too much awareness to the specific organs in our body, because when we do, by bringing the awareness to those organs, we change the tempo, the rhythm of those organs, and we're a massive machine, and a slight change in one part will have reverberations throughout. But we can become aware of our stomach. We can become aware of hunger if we're full. We can also become aware of our bladder, of our colon. These are normal internal perceptions if we need to go to the toilet. So just try to become aware as much as you can of the inside of your body, particularly those primary places, the mouth, the throat, the esophagus, the stomach, the bladder, and the colon. Then try to become aware of the outside of your body, the external sensations. So perhaps the air that touches your face, the hair on your head, if you're wearing any jewelry, watches, rings, bracelets, become aware of the touch of clothing on your face. If you're wearing socks or shoes, try to sense the outside of your body, the sensation of touch, the external perception of touch. So grounding ourselves in our physical body. And then, be aware that all forms of awareness, the ability to direct our attention, is a product of the prefrontal cortex, the most advanced part of our brain that makes us human. And it's this ability to control our attention that allows us to escape from the level of the man-machine. It allows us to escape from personality and begin to awaken ever so slightly. So let's, last week I think I did a J.G. Bennett 60-point exercise. Let's do the one that I found on a recording from George Addy, who was one of Mr. Gurdjieff's pupils who went to Australia and formed a group in Australia. And I have to apologize if you hear the vacuuming in the massage therapy clinic upstairs. Normally they do it about half an hour earlier. I'll try to talk a bit louder. So bring your attention to your right shoulder, your right upper arm, your right elbow, your right lower arm, your right wrist, your right hand. Actually, I think it's going to get a little too noisy. Maybe I will do something else. And I know what it's going to sound like. Maybe I will do one of my pre-recorded inner exercises. I will do the, if I could find it, the Georgia D one, the one that I'm just doing now. Let me see. Whoops. Sorry. Just give me a second. This is, I don't see clients before noon, and one of the reasons they can get really loud when they, okay, I'm not finding my exercise. I have everything else all set up for today, but I didn't set this up. Just give me a moment. There it is. Okay, just give me a second, and I will stop this, or maybe I won't. Maybe we can just follow the whole exercise through. But here, I'm gonna mute all our microphones. Excuse me, I'll unmute my microphone for a second, and then I'll mute it. I'll mute us all so that we do not pick up any background sounds. Whoops, share computer sound, share.
The morning sitting. An inner exercise from
And you
the
can all hear
Gurdjieff
this?
Tradition, reformulated by Allan. It is best to begin in a comfortable position with your feet slightly apart and your palms on your thighs or at your side. Then scan your body to ensure that the energy is able to flow freely down your arms and legs. And if you are not already relaxed, please do whatever you need to do in order to relax your mind, body, and feelings, all three centers, before you continue with this exercise. And then begin by affirming the 3 lines of work. So repeat either silently or out loud. I am doing this work for myself. I am doing this work for humanity. I am doing this work for the earth herself. Now we lose higher substances that we produce in various ways, and one of the aims of inner work is to create and keep higher, more refined substances within ourselves to grow our being. So following Mr. Gurdjieff's instructions, affirm the following by repeating silently or out loud. May the higher substances I produce during this exercise stay within me. Now do not alter the natural rhythm of your breathing, but simply allow your body to breathe naturally throughout this exercise, and start by becoming aware of the sensation of gravity, the sensation of balance, and the sensation of the temperature of the air surrounding your body. And then use the sacred ability of your mind to direct your attention and direct it to your right shoulder, your right bicep, your right elbow and the bend behind your elbow, your right lower arm, your right wrist, the palm of your right hand, your right thumb, index finger, middle finger, fourth finger, and baby finger, the top of your right hand, and moving back up your right wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm to your right shoulder, and then allow your entire right arm to fill with sensation, sensing your entire right arm. And while using the sacred ability of your mind to direct your attention, keep part of your attention directed onto the sensation of your whole right arm, and direct another part to the sensation of your right hip, your right upper leg, your right knee and the bend behind your knee, your right lower leg, your right ankle, your right heel, the bottom of your right foot, including your instep, your right big toe, second toe, middle toe, fourth toe, and baby toe, the top of your right foot, and moving back up your right ankle, lower leg, knee, upper leg to your right hip, and then allow your entire right leg to fill with sensation, sensing your entire right leg as one, while also remaining aware of your right arm. And while keeping a part of your attention directed onto the sensation of your right arm and leg, direct another part to the sensation of your left hip, your left upper leg, your left knee and the bend behind your knee, your left lower leg, your left ankle, your left heel, the bottom of your left foot including your instep, your left baby toe, fourth toe, middle toe, second toe, and big toe, the top of your left foot, and moving back up your left ankle, lower leg, knee, upper leg to your left hip, and then allow your entire left leg to fill with sensation, sensing your entire left leg, while also remaining aware of your right arm and leg, and while keeping a part of your attention on your right arm, right leg, and left leg, direct another part to the sensation of your left shoulder, your left bicep, your left elbow and the bend behind your elbow, your left lower arm, your left wrist, the palm of your left hand, your left baby finger, fourth finger, middle finger, index finger, and thumb, the top of your left hand, and moving back up your left wrist, forearm, elbow, upper arm to your left shoulder, and then allow your entire left arm to fill with sensation, sensing your entire left arm while also remaining aware of your right arm, right leg, and left leg, sensing all four of your limbs at once. And do your best to continue to maintain this awareness of all four of your limbs for the remainder of this exercise. Now we have 5 sacral vertebrae in our tailbone, 5 lumbar vertebrae in our lower back, 12 thoracic vertebrae in our middle and upper back, and 7 cervical vertebrae in our neck. So as you remain aware of all 4 of your limbs, use your head brain to bring a part of your attention to the sensation of the first vertebrae, sacral 5, at the very bottom of your spine, and then move up to sacral 4, 3, 2, 1, and moving up to the vertebrae in the lower back, sensing lumbar 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and moving up to the middle of the back, sensing thoracic 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, and moving up into the upper back, sensing thoracic 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and moving up into the neck, sensing cervical 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then sense your entire spine at once, while also sensing all 4 limbs. And while holding on to the awareness of your 4 limbs and spine, also become aware of the occipital bone in the back of your skull, the temporal and parietal bones at the sides and top of your skull, the frontal bone in your forehead, aware of all 4 limbs, your spine, and the bones in your skull. Then become aware of the sensation of your eye sockets, and notice how your eyes are like 2 soft orbs resting in these sockets. And then move part of your awareness down to your nasal passage, the roof of your mouth, the inside of your mouth, and sensing the place where your teeth and lips meet, sensing your tongue resting in the bottom of your mouth, and moving part of your awareness down, and sensing your jaw and the flesh below your tongue, and moving part of your awareness into your throat and down your throat, into your entire chest, solar plexus, lower abdomen, pelvis, and right down to your reproductive organs, aware of all 4 limbs, spine, skull, eye sockets and eyeballs, nasal passage, roof of mouth, inside of mouth, tongue, jaw, throat, chest, solar plexus, abdomen, pelvis, and reproductive organs, developing the sensation of self and sensing your entire body. And then allow your attention to rest. Now we are going to begin the key work of consciously digesting the higher active elements in the air we breathe. So bring your attention to your breath and become aware of the sensation of air flowing in and out as you breathe. And do not alter your breathing, but allow your body to follow its natural rhythm. Now repeat Mr. Gurdjieff's instructions, either silently or out loud. With full attention, I will draw in my breath, saying I and sensing the whole of myself. I wish very much to do this in order that I may digest the higher substances in the air for myself. Then as you breathe in, remain aware of the sensation of your whole body, while also becoming aware that something in the air, some quality, some feeling that is different than sensation, arises as your breath flows down into your solar plexus. And as you breathe out, sensing your whole body, imagine exhaling a gray, foggy waste, while some part of this new quality, this new feeling, flows from your solar plexus down to your reproductive organs. Use your head brain to imagine breathing in higher active elements in the air, while using your body brain to remain aware of the sensation of your whole body, while also harnessing your feeling brain to become aware of a different quality, a feeling that arises as your breath flows down into your solar plexus. And as you breathe out, imagine exhaling a gray, foggy waste while feeling how some part of this new quality, this new feeling flows from your solar plexus down to your reproductive organs. Now silently breathe in the word I and breathe out the word am. Silently breathing in the word I and imagining with your head brain that you are drawing active elements contained in the air into yourself, while also using your body brain to sense your whole body and using your feeling brain to feel this feeling that arises as your breath flows down into your solar plexus. And then as you silently breathe out the word am, imagining in your head brain that you are exhaling a gray, foggy waste, while sensing your whole body as one, and feeling that something of this feeling that arises remains in your solar plexus, while another part of this feeling flows down to your reproductive organs. Silently breathing in the word I and imagining with your head brain that you are drawing active elements contained in the air into yourself, while also using your body brain to sense your whole body, and using your feeling brain to feel this feeling that arises as your breath flows down into your solar plexus. And then as you silently breathe out the word am, imagining in your head brain that you are exhaling a gray, foggy waste while sensing your whole body as one, and feeling that something of this feeling that arises remains in your solar plexus, while another part of this feeling flows down to your reproductive organs. And continue doing this, silently breathing in the word I into your solar plexus and breathing out the word am for the next 5 minutes. And as you do so, we will ring a soft bell every minute to gently remind you to do this.
And I'm going to allow this to happen for a minute.
atmosphere on all your attention to rest. Now finish by becoming aware that you are surrounded by an atmosphere on all sides that is roughly a meter or so, and recognize that your thoughts and associations, your sensations and feelings can all produce waves that can disperse your atmosphere and cause the emanations you produce during inner work to be lost. So become aware of your atmosphere, a meter more or less. Become aware of this boundary surrounding you and focus all of your attention on keeping it from escaping beyond this limit. Collect it. Keep your atmosphere contained within this boundary. Keep it quiet, still, without movement or waves, as you keep your thoughts and sensations and feelings quiet and tranquil. And in a moment, on the count of 3, suck this atmosphere into yourself, consciously drawing it in with all of your will in order to conserve yourself in this atmosphere. 1, 2, 3, suck it in. And retain something from this exercise within you as you breathe out. Then finish by repeating, either silently or out loud, "May results from this exercise be transubstantiated in me for my being."
Oops. And then just slowly, bring yourself back here. Any comments? Any questions? It was nice for myself to do the exercise rather than have to narrate it. It did get pretty loud here with the vacuuming upstairs. Any comments on the inner work, on how it's going? Anyone do the decision exercise from last week? Let me unmute microphones. I was a little nasty to myself. I have an exercise bicycle that I don't use that often. And I've told myself my decision exercise was that I was going to get up first thing in the morning and either take the dog for a walk or before I had my cup of coffee to get on the exercise bicycle and just do 15 minutes. I'm going to hopefully slowly increase it. Just to get the heart going and get myself awake in the morning. Normally in the morning, I just kind of slowly ease around life. But my punishment was that I would make the coffee and I wouldn't allow myself to drink the coffee until I had done it. So rather than waiting until the end of the day and reviewing whether or not I've done it, it was a very immediate thing. So do I want my coffee? Yes, I want my coffee. And so far, I haven't punished myself with my coffee. And I've only been doing it a week now. And I'm actually feeling a bit, my legs were a little sore, particularly where I was on the seat. And now it's getting better. And hopefully I'll be able to make this part of my routine just to wake up in the morning and do a bit of vigorous exercise. Any other comments? Anyone try the decision exercise or have any observations, previously done it, or anything they want to comment on?
I haven't done it this week, partially because I've been busy, but partially because I am noticing a lot of resistance to it. There's, which I'm trying to work with. There's this story of like, I don't know what the day is going to bring. I don't know how present I'm going to be, and this is just me trying to control things And, you know, intellectually, I know this is an exercise. It's meant to show me things. It's meant to grow things. It's not, you know, but I still have this feeling of like kind of rebelliousness, or like, I don't, it, yeah, I just kind of want to shake it off. So I have a much quieter week this week. So I think I will be trying it later today or tomorrow, and see what I can work through with that. But in the delay, I have noticed this smaller eye coming up. It's sort of against the idea of any kind of regular schedule or plan or, you know, decision. So.
Well, I noticed that, and this goes back to my childhood. I didn't like taking, you know, gym class. When I was like 6 years old, I was playing road hockey and I got sliced above the eye. And I got 4 stitches and it bled and I thought I was blind, and it kind of turned me off sports and a lot of physical activity. So I noticed within myself that there is this emotion and emotional resistance to making myself exercise. But I tell myself I'm not drinking my coffee until I do it, so I might as well do it. And so becoming aware of that friction within yourself, being able to observe it, sort of getting the taste of it is a good experience. You know, where does it come from? Why is it trying to block you from doing inner work? What purpose does it serve? What purpose did it serve in your past? Because this is a feeling you felt before. We've all felt that resistance. As you were talking about it, I was aware of, for me, there's a degree, you know, when I do physical activity, physical exercise, I mean, I can go and walk with my dog for 10 miles. I can, you know, help someone move. I can do all sorts of stuff that, you know, requires a degree of physical exercise and fitness. But it's part of my normal routine, and it's something that I just end up doing in life. Whereas the act of making myself exercise takes me back to all those gym classes where I was the little runt in the class, and my brother was actually 6'4", and he was on the football team and the basketball team, and my mother was really good at tennis and badminton, and I couldn't catch a ball. I couldn't hit anything. I felt like a complete physical blob, not really blob, but it's just like baseball, a ball coming to me, my anxiety circuits would go into overdrive and I wouldn't be able to catch it. And so I'm realizing that as I'm doing this, that there's this long history, and that feeling that arises is an ancient feeling, and it's something I felt before. And in most of my life, I allow that feeling, and I've allowed it to dominate and take over, so that I end up not doing anything. So to me, finding that feeling is a real point of work, just to sort of laugh at the feeling, to try and change the feeling. I'm there on the exercise bicycle, and it's actually one that's got rowing and pedals. I bought it for $80 last December on Craigslist. And I try to turn that, what am I doing, into joy. And I try to really think that my body's loving doing this, and that I'm, you know, breathing and getting rid of toxins and sweating things out. And I'm trying to slowly change an ocean tanker that's like a mile long, and it doesn't turn on a dime. It turns over 10, 20, 30 miles. But, you know, just a little bit by little bit. So any other observations? I'm going to put you on the spot, Angelica. You did the relaxation exercise.
Yes.
Which I have as part of the decision exercise, the 3 levels of relaxation, and then the draining exercise.
Yes.
I've got that as a separate one, and then I've got one with the decision exercise tacked on to the end. But you had an interesting experience with the relaxation exercise. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I try to speak, and I first after I made the relaxation exercise, I decided to myself to do some trivial things different. For example, when I wake up in the morning very early every day, 4 o'clock in the morning, I decided to uh, make my coffee, and with my left hand, okay, I took the cup with left hand, and then it was easy, not difficult. I decided to refine this movement, putting the coffee powder into the cafetiere, which is more refined, and I cannot do this brutal with the coffee powder. You'll be wrong. And then after a time, I perceived that it was also not difficult, and start to introduce some other difficulties to myself. And I decided to, no, I observe what I really needed to eat, or it was only extra desire. And then I observed that I could eat a little bit less than I every day do. And I let a piece of bread, a piece of food, in my plate. And it was in the first moment difficult, because I want to eat this food, but I discovered that was not necessary, was only a desire. And then day by day, I started to do things, relaxation exercise and draining exercise. And suddenly, Allan, I was funny because I felt that I was not thinking. You know, I was empty in my mind, and for, I don't know, seconds, I get fear. I feel fear. And I thought, oh, I needed to thinking because I'm not thinking. And this was a special moment that I do not forget, but was great because I feel fear and don't think. And after this wonderful moment, no thinking, I got a surprise to myself that some noise, past noise in my life that I have, blah, 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 every day, disappeared. And this was, for me, the best result after what I share with you all. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't know why I feel fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I remember when I was 23 years old and I was first taught how to self-remember in a class on theories of personality, a psychology course by Dr. Christopher Holmes. And I remember as I got involved in the Gurdjieff teachings and as I joined Chris's group and as I read In Search of the Miraculous, thinking, I don't want to give up my thoughts. They're the most important part of me. And, you know, this internal dialogue that spins around our head. And, you know, I had been taken, you know, by the whole Western, I think, therefore I am, Descartes, Descartes, thinking that as a man, as a human being, the most exalted part of me are my thoughts, and to not want to give them up. And now it's just like, shut up upstairs, be quiet. I want to be. And I think Mr. Gurdjieff said that part of ourselves is about 1/20th of who we are. So it's about 5% of who we are. And the rest of ourselves, the other 95%, when you begin to connect to it and you begin to tap into it, it's quite incredible. So thank you for sharing that experience, and with the decision exercise and using your left hand. Years ago, when I joined and I spent 11 months in a Gurdjieff Bennett group, the leader of the group had spent 6 weeks training himself to be left-handed. He did everything with the left hand. He wrote with his left hand. That was his task for a full 6 weeks. So we can get very, very complex with this. I remember him also describing an exercise where whenever he did certain things, he would move through his body. And this is very similar to the exercise that Paul Beidler talked about in terms of sources of divine rejoicings, revolts, and sufferings. Direct your actions upon us, which is a prayer that comes from Beelzebub Tales. And for Paul Beidler, as you're moving to the word sources with your right wrist, ob with your right elbow, divine, your right shoulder, moving down, then the points, the major joints in your left leg, up them in your right, down your arm, and saying the prayer the whole time, bringing your conscious awareness to movement, to tasks. So the other interesting thing about the decision exercise in doing this is whatever your level is, you can always move it up a level. Even Mr. Gurdjieff could find moments in his life that he could actually do real work. They talk about in movements, even the best movement instructors find that line between competence and incompetence. And so the decision exercise, everyone can benefit from it, from the beginners to people who've been in it all their lives or for decades. It's something we can all profit from. Now, I'm going to try and share something if I can find it. I tried to set all of this up. Here it is. Hopefully, can you all see this? Where it says on one occasion at the beginning. Okay, this is from P.D. Uspensky's In Search of the Miraculous. It starts on page number 118. And this is in response to what Ian had asked about last week. He asked about this. Let's see if I can make it a bit bigger at all. There's got to be a way to increase it slightly. Variable. Okay, on one occasion, at the beginning of a meeting, G, as in Gurdjieff, put a question to which all those present had to answer in turn. The question was, what is the most important thing that we notice during self-observation? Some of those present said that during attempts at self-observation, what they had felt particularly strongly was an incessant flow of thoughts which they found impossible to stop. Others spoke of the difficulty of distinguishing the work of one center from another. I had evidently not altogether understood the question, or I answered my own thoughts, because I said that what struck me most was the connectedness of one thing with another in the system, the wholeness of the system, as if it were an organism, and the entirely new significance of the word to know, which included not only the idea of knowing this or that, but the connection between this thing and everything else. G was obviously dissatisfied with our replies. I had already begun to understand him in such circumstances and saw that he expected from us indications of something definite that we had missed or failed to understand. Not one of you has noticed the most important thing that I have pointed out to you, he said. That is to say, not one of you has noticed that you do not remember yourselves. He gave particular emphasis to these words. You do not feel yourselves. You are not conscious of yourselves. With you, it observes. Just as it speaks, it thinks, it laughs. You do not feel. I observe. I notice. I see. Everything is still, is noticed, is seen. In order to really observe oneself, one must first of all remember oneself. He again emphasized these words. Try to remember yourselves when you observe yourselves, and later on tell me the results. Only those results will have any value that are accompanied by self-remembering. Otherwise, you yourself do not exist in your observations, in which case, what are all your observations worth? These words of G made me think a great deal. It seemed to me at once that they were the key to what he had said before about consciousness. But I decided to draw no conclusions whatsoever, but to try to remember myself while observing myself. The very first attempts showed how difficult it was. Attempts at self-remembering failed to give any results except to show me that in actual fact, we never remember ourselves. What else do you want, said G. This is a very important realization. People who know this, he emphasized these words, already know a great deal. The trouble is that nobody knows it. If you ask a man whether he can remember himself, he will, of course, answer that he can. If you tell him that he cannot remember himself, he will either be angry with you or he will think you an utter fool. The whole of life is based on this, the whole of human existence, the whole of human blindness. If a man really knows that he cannot remember himself, he is already near to the understanding of his being. And I'm just going to make an aside comment here. You tell someone, can you remember yourself? And in that moment, and only for that moment, they can have a little glimmering, a little remembrance of themselves, a little awareness of themselves. And so they go, of course I can remember myself. And they consider that this to be a property, something that they own, something that they can do whenever they want, but they never do it. It's one of the tricks of the human being. In a moment, we can slide up to the state of personal consciousness for a brief moment when we're challenged. We can assemble the energy needed, pull ourselves up to that level, and then for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month, forget about ourselves. And so, he's talking about this here, that, most people think they can do it. They think they possess it. And if you tell them that they don't, they get angry. All that G said, all that I thought myself thought, especially all that my attempts at self-remembering had shown me, very soon convinced me that I was faced with an entirely new problem, which science and philosophy had not so far come across. But before making deductions, I will try to describe my attempts to remember myself. The first impression was that attempts to remember myself or to be conscious of myself, to say to myself, I am walking, I am doing, and continually to feel this stopped thought. And as I mentioned last week, Uspensky has created more misunderstanding with the whole process of self-remembering in this passage. And I've seen more muddled thinking coming from it. And I don't know if I can highlight the word, feel. Mr. Gurdjieff in Life is Real Only Then When I Am, in one of his lectures, says that, one of the idiocies of the English language is that, someone touches us, did you feel that? And he talked about feeling as being different from sensation. So in this passage here, the biggest error that Uspensky introduced to these teachings, to this system, was the misuse of the word feel. I felt that, but Mr. Gurdjieff says that feeling is different than sensation. And I've spent years attempting to retrain myself to speak about sensation with the word sensing, and feelings, emotions with the word feeling. So, I stopped thought. When I was feeling, again, the word feeling, I could neither think nor speak. Even sensations became dim. He's entering, so this is where it's getting confusing. Also, one could only remember oneself in this way for a very short time. Here I'll make another aside. In order to be personally conscious, in order to self-remember, in order to step up to that level, it requires a more refined, higher energy. And as long as we are leaking energy at the lower level through such things as excessive thinking, which are, the formatory apparatus, the words churning around in our mind, excessive movements, through negative emotions, through various forms of identification, especially internal considering, through the waste of our energy in these activities, we don't have enough energy to maintain these higher states. And if we look at ourselves as an energy factory and to realize that we are leaking energy at the lower level and attempt to fix those leaks, we will have more energy that will allow us to remain more in these higher states. So getting back to this, I had previously made certain experiments in stopping thought, which are mentioned in books on yoga practice. For example, there is a description in Edward Carpenter's book, From Adam's Peak to Elephanta, although it is a very general one. And my first attempts to self-remember reminded me exactly of these, my first experiments. Actually, it was almost the same thing, with the one difference that in stopping thoughts, attention is wholly directed towards the effort of not admitting thoughts. That's in Edward Carpenter's books. While in self-remembering, attention becomes divided. One part of it is directed towards the same effort, and the other part to the feeling, which should be the sensation of self. This last realization enabled me to come to a certain, possibly a very incomplete definition of self-remembering, which nevertheless proved to be very useful in practice. I am speaking of the attention, which is characteristic feature of self-remembering. I represented it to myself in the following way. When I observe something, my attention is directed towards that, what I observe, aligned with one arrowhead. And excuse me, when I did this morning, that showed up as an arrow, the 3/4 directed to the R, the attention directed towards the observed phenomenon. When at the same time I try to remember myself, my attention is directed both towards the object observed and towards myself. A second arrowhead appears in the line. So there's an arrowhead going back to the I and going back to the observed phenomenon. Having defined this, I saw the problem consisted in directing attention on oneself without weakening or obliterating the attention directed on something else. Moreover, this something else could as well be within me as outside of me. The very first attempts at such division of attention showed me in its very possibility. At the same time, I saw two things clearly. In the first place, I saw that self-remembering resulting from this method had nothing in common with self-feeling or self-analysis. It was a new and very interesting state with a strangely familiar flavor. And secondly, I realized that moments of self-remembering do occur in life, though rarely. Only the deliberate production of these moments created the sensation of novelty. Actually, I've been very familiar with them from early childhood. They came either in new and unexpected surroundings or in a new place, among new people while traveling, for instance, when one suddenly looks about and says, "How strange, and in this place," or in very emotional moments, in moments of danger, in moments when it is necessary to keep one's head, when one hears one's own voice and sees and observes oneself from the outside. What he's actually saying here is that what we remember in a state of self-remembering really becomes a true, clear memory within ourselves. Now, just going back up to, I'm sorry I don't have the arrows here. When I did this morning, they were there. He's introducing another mistake here between I and the observed phenomena. Self-remembering involves the division of attention. I'm just going to stop sharing this. I'm going to bring something else up. I may have to bring the same thing up. Let me, there. This is Beelzebub Tales to his grandson. I don't like to talk about it much, but I've talked about this particular section over and over again. Let me just try to zoom it a bit. This is the clearest explanation of self-remembering I've ever come across, but it's very confusing unless you know that he's talking about self-remembering. And I believe it's somewhere around page 1173 in Tales. So, this is Beelzebub talking to his grandson, Hussein. "And now, my boy, in order that what I am saying at the moment should become still more comprehensible to you, I find it necessary to repeat in another and more definite form about the differences already mentioned in me many times for different motives between what are called knowledge and understanding, present in three-brained beings in general. In order that this difference should stand out more clearly, I shall again take in as example the ordinary reason of your favorites. If one makes an analogy between this, as they themselves call it, conscious reason of theirs, which is completely fixed in contemporary beings, and that reason of three-brained beings in general who breed on other planets of our great megalocosmos, then the former, which they have them in them, might be called reason of knowing." And, for those of you who've read In Search of the Miraculous, it's very important to understand the difference between knowing and understanding. He said that to know something is just it's just an intellectual exercise. But when we understand with all three brains, our head brain, our body brain, and our feeling brain. So it seems like he's talking about something else here. It seems like he's talking about the reason of knowing and the reason of understanding. And those people who've been acquainted with this through Ouspensky are sort of being misdirected. But this is about self-remembering. the conscious reason of understanding, which in general it is proper for three-brained beings to have, is as something which blends with their common presence, and therefore information of every kind perceived with this reason forever becomes forever their inseparable part. So reason of understanding, in other words, what we learn in a state of self-remembering, those memories stay with us. This is something that Ouspensky had observed. He said it becomes forever their inseparable part. Information perceived with this reason or results obtained thanks to being contemplation, which is mentation, active being mentation, being contemplation of the totality of formerly perceived information. However, a being himself may change, and whatever changes may proceed in the spheres around him will be forever a part of his essence. And as for that reason, which for most of your contemporary favorites has become habitual, and which I call the reason of knowing, and this is the chapter form and sequence, page 1167, so there we know now, called reason of knowing, which is just the normal way, our one brain, head brain way of viewing the world, every kind of new impression perceived through this reason, and likewise every kind of intentional or simply automatically obtained result from formerly perceived impressions is only a temporary part of our being and might result in them exclusively only in certain surrounding circumstances on the definite conditions of that information which constitutes all its foundation and entirety should without fail be from time to time, so to say, refreshed or repeated. Otherwise, these formerly perceived impressions change of themselves, or even entirely, so to say, evaporate out of the common presence of the three-brain being. What he's saying is that what we learn in our head brain as a single brain awareness, we have to continually refresh it. So people who haven't spoken a language in 20 years lose the language unless they continually refresh it. Although in respect of the sacred triam azikamno, that's the law of three, the process of arising of both kinds of being reasons flows equally. Yet the fulfilling factors for the actualization of its three separate holy forces are different. Namely, for the formation of the reason of knowing, the formerly perceived contradictory impressions crystallized in any one of the three localizations which the three brain beings have serves as the affirming and denying factors, and the new impressions proceeding from without serve in this case as the third factor. This is a real, I love the way Mr. Gurdjieff phrases things because he makes us think and bang our heads. He said that as some people get old, they are unable to receive a new impression. Anything you say to them pulls up a memory, and that memory is really the positive diode, and what you're saying is the negative diode, or the positive end of the current and the negative end of the current. And because of this process, memory, our ability to be present, everything gets distorted. It's an internet meme that a lot of people are not paying attention to what you're saying. They're waiting for a break in your flow of words so they can say something. So they're not paying attention. They're not receiving the information that you are speaking properly. All it is doing is pulling up something inside themselves that they want to get out, and they're not properly present in this moment. And most of the way, you know, we walk down the street and it's cloudy and we think, oh, the clouds. It's pulling up that feeling inside us. Oh, they looked at me wrong. Ooh, that's a cup of coffee there. Our attention is being pulled, all sorts of different directions, but the real focus is on those things that are being pulled up within ourselves. We're not receiving new impressions properly. As for the reason of understanding, these factors are as followed. The first, that is the sacred affirming, is the newly perceived impressions of any localization which has at the given moment what is called the center of gravity functioning. The second, or sacred denying, is the corresponding data present in another of his localizations. And the third factor is what is called being autokoleknixers, or as they otherwise call it, I love these words because this is all about receiving first impressions, because we've got to figure out what these words mean. The sense of which the name signifies the results of the persevering, actualizing of the striving towards the manifestations of one's individuality. Now, it's what's on the screen right now. This is self-remembering. We have a head brain. Our head brain is a representative of the holy affirming. It's a representative of the sacred affirming, the positive principle. Our body brain is a representative of the sacred denying, the holy denying. Mr. Gurdjieff's great prayer, holy affirming, holy denying, holy reconciling. And the holy reconciling is our feeling brain. Holy affirming, holy denying, holy reconciling. Transubstantiate for me in my being is the prayer. So the sacred affirming is referring to our head brain. It's referring to our ability to observe new impressions. And if we do this in the wrong way, we get messed up inside. But then he brings in the second, or the sacred denying, is the corresponding data present in another of his localizations. So when Ouspensky had that I and the observed, and normally the arrow goes from the I to the observed, when it comes back towards the I, rather than the I, it should have been the sacred denying. In any form of self-remembering, it's absolutely essential to maintain an awareness of the sensation of self, to maintain an awareness of the sacred denying, an awareness of our physical body. So as I'm observing the screen, as I'm looking at the camera in my laptop, as I am observing this with my head brain, my body brain, the sacred denying is holding on to the sensation of myself. So I'm not only observing these impressions, the visual impressions, perhaps the auditory impressions, perhaps what I can smell, perhaps the taste in my mouth. These are all in my head brain, my ability to see, hear, smell, and taste. As I'm receiving impressions from the external world through my organs of perceptions, my eyes, ears, nose, and my taste buds, I am also holding in the back of my awareness the sensation of myself. And this is the preliminary form of self-remembering. It's the awareness of myself, which is the sensation of myself here in this environment. And that's what Ouspensky was talking about when he said that when you go to a foreign country, when you travel, you can have this profound realization of here, me, here I am, to be physically present in this new place. So it's not observing the I. The I is actually something different. The I is what's observing the body. The I is what's observing thoughts. The I is the real I, and that's actually not something we should really focus on in the process of self-remembering. Self-remembering is to fully inhabit the level of personal consciousness. The next level above that is the level of the real I. That's where the true observer, the true witness comes into play. In the process of self-remembering, it's observing, being aware of what I can see, hear, smell, taste. It also means being aware of words that other people may be speaking, being aware of words I may be reading, being aware of different things that I can be perceiving while sensing my body. And at the ultimate level, to also become aware of a certain quality of feeling. I'm just going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to bring up, hopefully, this, bring up something else that I've set up here. This is the first one, and I did this diagram this way to show the growth and creation of our being, how we really do grow something within ourselves as we begin to evolve. And this is my re-representation of what's found in chapter 9 of In Search of the Miraculous, the food diagrams. This lower one represents natural man, normal man. Normal man is actually pretty malignant. Normal people out there, this is not a proper representation of a normal person. This is ideal circumstances of a normal person. But as we step up, and so this is a state of waking sleep, as we step up to the level of personal consciousness, as we move, so here the center of gravity is world 48, the man-machine, the level of personality. As we move up and move up to the level of personal consciousness, the mindful realm, I've got circled here 3 molecules. And I describe these as the molecules of self-remembering. So to sense our hands, to become aware of the sensation of the skin on our hands, to become aware of the bones, the tendons, the ligaments, the muscles in our hand, the circle on the very left of the screen, Law 24. The sensation of your hands is a result of that carbon-12 coming into contact with SO 48, and the awareness, the sensation of hands is actually fueled by Law 24. So when we sense our entire body, when we develop the sensation of self, that physical awareness, that sensation of ourself is the proper transformation of the molecule of hydrogen 24, Law 24, the level of personal consciousness. So the sensation of self, any kind of sensory mindful awareness, is fueled by Law 24. And I don't want to go into it too complex, but the higher blends with the lower to meet in the middle. So 12, the 12 of the real I, the observer, is actually involved in that process, and the mechanical awareness of the body is involved in that, but we step up to that level. That's with the physical body. This, on the left, the do-re-mi, that is the octave of food. The middle do-re-mi is the octave of air, which is also the octave of emotions. We can notice that it's a different molecule that's involved in the mindful or self-reflective awareness of our emotions. And here it's Fa 24 of the octave of air. So if you can try to summon up a slight feeling of joy, if you can smile with your eyes, smile with your lips, if you can become mindful of a certain feeling within you, if you can observe that feeling, become aware of that feeling, that awareness of that feeling is being fueled by Fa 24. And then when we come over to the very right side, Re 24 of the octave of impressions, to focus on this diagram, to become aware of your eyes perceiving the rectangles, to become aware of the different shades of blue, to become aware of the red circles, to become aware of your eyes receiving these impressions, to be mindful of seeing this screen, to be mindful of hearing the sound of my voice, perhaps to be mindful of the smell in the room around you, the taste in your mouth. This is a result of Ray 24. It's a result of the higher blending with the lower to meet in that ability to be mindful of our environment. So basic self-remembering can be any two brains, as long as one of them is the sensation of self, as long as one of them involves the molecule law 24 of the octave of food, as long as we are aware of our body. If we are aware of our body and we become aware of what we can see, hear, smell, taste, even just one of them, aware of our body, well aware of what we can see, that's a form of self-remembering. Also, to become aware of our body and become aware of what we're feeling in the moment is a form of self-remembering. But at its highest level, it is a three-brained phenomenon. It is to be conscious of what we are perceiving from the external world through our head-brain senses. It is to be conscious of the sensation of self, our physical body, and it is to be conscious of our emotions. Now, coming back down to this diagram, man as he is born, we are born with a fully functional octave of food. So I've always said the most important awareness to develop is the sensation of self. This is something we can all do. We all have this ability to be aware of law 24. And we have to develop this ability so good we can slip it into the back of our awareness. And then the next step is actually to become aware of Ray 24, to become aware of what we perceive in the outside world. So our head brain and our body brain. And the final stage in self-remembering is to become aware, self-reflective, personally conscious of what we are perceiving through our eyes, ears, nose, mouth, the sensation of our body, the sensation of self, while also being aware of what we are feeling. And this state, for every sort of level of being, they're not just a discrete category, that they're subdivisions. So a particular note on a category can be divided into another whole octave. So the difference between a man number 1, 2, and 3 is man number 1, 2, and 3 are unbalanced. They live in a mechanical state. When we are beginning to awaken to the level of personal reflectivity, we are becoming a very low man number 4. And a man number 4, by definition, is attempting to harmonize and balance the functioning of all three of these brains. And when we get to the point where we can consciously look or mindfully sense the awareness of our body and mindfully become aware of our feelings, at that point we are a high number 4, verging up, almost ready to begin to have a taste of what a man number 5 is. And so habitual man on the right-hand side, this is man number 1, 2, and 3. The mindful man, or using the Gurdjieffian word, personally conscious, is man number 4. And the conscious man, objective consciousness, is man number 5. And these are also, if you go to the left, connected to energy. Hydrogen 48, the energy of world 48, the earthly energy, our planetary body. The essence, the energy of world 24, our inner being, personally conscious. 12, hydrogen 12, world 12, the energy of the awakened man. the energy of the real I. So this is what we should be aiming towards. This is a man number 5. This is a man number 4. And then this is a man number 3. But this is a man number 4 in the full expression of a man number 4 at their highest. And again, this is just an intermediary level, because this is the level and this is how we should be aiming to grow our being. Yeah, I covered a lot there, and a lot of it was very theoretical. I hope I didn't confuse you too much, that I kind of explained things. Just try to become aware of what you can see, what you can hear, what you can smell. Try to become aware of the taste in your mouth. Try to become aware of your physical body. Try to sense your whole body from the bottom of your feet to the top of your head. And then try to hold this sensation of self in the back of your awareness. We have to learn it in first position, get so good at the sensation of self, we can hold it in the back of our consciousness. So it's there in the back of our consciousness. And then become aware of what you can see, hear, smell, taste. And when Uspensky talked about the arrow reflecting back on itself, he was really talking, he didn't know it, but about the head brain and the body brain, observing the external world through the organs of perceptions, our eyes, ears, nose, taste buds, while observing the sensation of our body. And this awareness of ourselves here in this environment. We're just about out of time, Any questions quickly, or we probably don't have a lot of time. It's 11:57. Very theoretical today. I've covered a lot. Hopefully I've made a bit of sense. Hopefully those watching on Facebook have a bit better sense. The exercise that we did, the morning sitting exercise, is found on the YouTube channel, the Toronto Gurdjieff group. And that was actually a 3-brained exercise. The awareness of, the active elements of the air, breathing out a great foggy waste is part of the head brain imaginal realm. The sensation of self, the working and developing of the sensation of self was a body brain. And then to become aware of something else, that feeling that arises, that flows to our solar plexus, was an attribute of the feeling brain. So that exercise is a very advanced exercise, and it's a 3-brained exercise designed to help us accumulate the higher carbons that are necessary for inner work and the alchemy of human transformation. I've run out of time. We covered a lot today, though, so it's all here now. It'll be up on YouTube in a week or so. When I still have last week's one I've got to upload, and I've got to put it on Premiere Pro and do a little bit of editing, and then I'll get this one up. So this information will be there. At any rate, try to do the decision exercise this week. Try to set yourself a task. Just a little thing, don't try big things. I think for Angelica, holding the coffee with the left hand is a perfect task. We grow by doing small things well. Mr. Gurdjieff said that, he who knows how to make a cup of coffee well can do big things well. And by that, he meant to do it with full awareness. So just little steps. But it's also important, as we discussed last week in the decision exercise, to include some kind of punishment so that we discipline the mechanical self. We discipline the habitual self. Punishment's a very important part of life. And I wish I had known this when my children were very young. I would have actually punished them a little bit more and been a little bit more of a disciplinarian. Rather than, being a parent in the 90s when there was this whole attitude of permissiveness going on. I learned a lot about this after my children were grown. And, disciplining children so they get used to the idea of rewards and punishments, and disciplining ourselves. It's how we grow our being, to set ourselves tasks, to create little mini aims to just lift us up ever so briefly a number of times throughout the day. And if we fail, to perform those tasks to punish ourselves. That was last week's meeting. At any rate, it's noon. I've got a client coming in a little while. I want to thank you all for joining me. And those of you on Facebook, thank you. And those of you ultimately watching this on YouTube, thank you as well. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allan.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.